All right, people. Want to do a little bit of an update, something on my mind here today. Wanted to share it with y'all. And just been thinking about this whole stay at home order and this whole social distancing routine that we're going through here. And, people are getting a little uptight with it here. We saw at the governor's mansion in Minnesota. Uh, People were outside there rallying, blowing their horns, driving around the block there, and I don't know. A lot of people are saying, "I hope they keep them awake all night." So people are getting tired of the whole thing, being cooped up at home, and very, very concerned about the fact that no one's going to work. Okay, because as every day that this goes on, our economy sinks that much further. Okay, so a couple thoughts that I had here today. I've been thinking about this a bit and talking with a few people, and one thing I want to discuss is this thing called herd immunity. And if you're not sure what that is, we'll go to Wikipedia here real quick, and it'll show you that herd immunity, it's also called the herd effect, okay? Or community immunity. That sounds cute. Anyway, but it's a form of indirect protection from infectious diseases that occur when a large percentage of a population has become immune to an infection, whether through previous infections or a vaccine, and thereby it provides a measure of protection for individuals who are not immune. So what that means is that if you have a population that let's say they either get vaccine or they contract a virus or something like that, and the body builds up immunity in the people among the community, the more you have that have built this immunity, the less likely it is to spread to others, because most people are immune, and that means if you have, let's say, 80% of people that are immune to it now, you have 20% that aren't. Well, those 20%, when they're walking around in public, it is really one of, they're going to be less likely to contract this virus because most of the people around them are immune. Okay, so here's what it had me thinking about is that I'm wondering, with all of this social distancing, are we adversely affecting the possibility for our nation or the world in general to develop the herd effect for immunity? And so the more we stay away from people, the less likely we are to contract this directly and therefore not build up the immunity that we need to protect us from it when it comes around again. And now I've heard this from other people, so I was looking into it, and though it seems that the ones that we really need to protect, that we really need to isolate, are those that have a weakened immune system. They're immunodeficient, right? Or they might have other underlying conditions, and this would be called comorbidity. And that those types of people are the ones that are really vulnerable to a virus or a disease. The disease is COVID-19. The virus is the coronavirus, whatever version it is. But anyway, they're more vulnerable to that disease when it occurs. And it seems to me that it would make sense that if we went about our daily life, we might actually start developing the herd effect or the herd immunity among those of us who are healthy, while we still protect those who are vulnerable by keeping them isolated and keeping them safe and not sitting there and, visiting them or something like that. Why, until this thing kind of passes or whatever. But I don't know that we can actually avoid having people catch, well, I don't know if you catch it, but contract it. Sooner or later, it's going to come on through unless you pass away, unless it disappears for good, or you pass away before it returns or something like that. But the thing is, even if it returns, children who, let's say, didn't have an immunity to it, they're surrounded by other people that did have an immunity to it because they either had a vaccine or contracted it. So I don't know. It just seems to me that maybe this is kind of interfering with the natural order of things where we can develop immunity. And then, I mean, what's the alternative? We rely on vaccines, and we pretty much documented well that the vaccine initiative, or the vaccine industry for that matter, is a very high profit industry, and there's a lot of people that are involved in it that claim to be philanthropists or, looking out for benevolent beings that are looking out for the whole world and stuff. But we have heard otherwise from some of these beings when they do their TED Talks, and they talk about decreasing the population through vaccines and so forth. So, I mean, and I don't know if that's exactly accurate, because there's a couple of different ways that you could hear what Bill Gates was saying. But nevertheless, the goal there was to keep the population down, and some people would like to actually reduce the population. So, but I wanted to bring that thing up about herd immunity. So there's another thing I was looking at here. Herd immunity, some people don't think it's the answer here for COVID-19. Yeah, this is not the article I wanted. But, I mean, it's just a question that I have for people out there. So here's an article on U.S. News and World Report, and here's kind of how the statistics break down for this particular disease, right? Either the virus or the disease. But basically, no, it should be the disease, because it's talking about once being infected. So here, and this is from Monday, March 30th. Okay, so it's a while ago, but I think the statistics are going to be similar. But it says once infected with the new coronavirus, a 20-something-year-old person is what they're talking about, someone in their 20s, they have about a 1% chance of illness, so severe that it requires hospitalization. Sorry, slip of the tongue here. And that risk rises to more than 8% for people in their 50s and to nearly 19% for people over 80, right? So, and this is where we've heard, okay, so the ones who are really in danger are those that are elderly and so forth. And they think that, 80% of the people that will get this virus either will not realize they have it, or the symptoms will be so minimal, it'll be just like a cold. But it's the other 20% that it'll be a little more harsh, and maybe half of those, I think 10% total of all of them, are going to maybe require hospitalization. So I don't know how that compares to the flu or not, but basically that's kind of the rundown. Now, the reason I got this article here is because down here, it talks about some of these death rates. And let me see if I can find exactly where it is. All right, here it says, on the other hand, the death rate from COVID-19 is significantly lower than that seen in prior estimates. A new report found among diagnosed cases just under 1.4% of patients will die. That's a 1.4% mortality of people that have caught it or that contracted it, right? So if you have 1,000, that would be essentially 14 people out of 1,000. Okay, 1.4%. All right. Anyway, and then it goes down here and says when undiagnosed cases, typically individuals with mild or no symptoms are added to the mix. So these are the other 80% of people that are added to the mix. The overall death rate from coronavirus infections drops further to 0.66%. I mean, that's like 6.5 people out of 1,000. Okay? And that's still much higher than the 0.02% death rate observed during the H1N1 flu season. back in 2009. All right, so the reason I brought this up is because I'm going to go into Minnesota here. Let's get rid of these ads here. And Minnesota has had a little bit of activity going on here. Sorry, that's my corona cough. I'll try not to spread it. Anyway, it says here, and this was, I'm thinking that this was, that was 10 hours ago. So I thought this was a couple days ago. All right, so 10 hours ago, it was reported 17 more people have died from the novel coronavirus in Minnesota, a single-day high since the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in the state on March 6th. Okay, so 17 new people have died from it, right? In addition, an additional 159 cases of COVID-19 were confirmed, and the highest yet in a 24-hour reporting period. Wow, I mean, this looks like it's really booming around here, right? Bringing the statewide total to 2,071 confirmed cases, and the death toll of the virus is now 111. But the problem that I see here is that these statistics in Minnesota, somehow they must defy the laws of physics or biology or whatever, because they're at like 5%. And we just read that it should be 1.4%. That is what statistics from the CDC had said. I'm pretty sure it was CDC. But anyway, so somehow Minnesota, man, we're up to 5% deaths. Unless, of course, maybe the numbers are skewed, which is pretty much what we have documented over the last couple of days here, right? Check out my video yesterday and you'll see. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this whole thing up because clearly Minnesota's got an issue here. I mean, we don't have that much going on here. You know, it's 111 deaths, and I mean, I don't want to diminish that at all. Every death is important, but what they died of, that's the question here. Now, I'm not saying that 111 people didn't die. I'm just wondering what they died from. Did they really die from coronavirus or from a COVID-19, or are these the recipients of fake numbers? You know, because we know that's what's going on here in Minnesota, and we know our governor doesn't like it. He thinks I'm spreading a bunch of disinformation, which is why all of my friends, my neighbors of the state, went down to his home, and they started driving their trucks around. I'm sure they were pretty moved by what was going on in Michigan at their capital, because it was kind of the same thing. People are getting tired of this. These numbers being fabricated or inflated to bring on a deeper sense of fear, so that people are looking more and more for a solution, especially when we're isolated. We cannot have the herd immunity coming into effect. That effect will never happen as long as we are isolated. They're saying that we need to have possibly 70% of the population in order to start really seeing herd immunity take effect for this particular disease or this particular virus. So I don't know. I think people are getting tired of it. They just want to get back to work. And you know what? Maybe if we got to wear masks at work, then so be it. But we cannot let our country die because we're afraid that we might die from a disease. I mean, you have a disease on the one hand and the whole country on the other hand. What do you pick? And what do we pass on to our children when we're gone? What's going to be standing here? We don't live forever, right? What's going to be standing in our place? Is this country still going to be a country? Or are we going to be in a police state where you cannot drive a car because you haven't had your most recent vaccine? That's the kind of crap we don't want. It's unconstitutional. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, people. Herd immunity. Let's practice it. Now, listen, I'm not saying that we should go out and everyone, start breathing everyone else's exhale and try and get infected or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But some people have actually thought about that. Maybe we should make ourselves get sick so we build up the immunity. But in this case, it's probably not a good idea because this is an aggressive contagion, right? But still, why are we preventing society from naturally building some of this immunity? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, hey, if you like the video, pass it on. Why don't you give me some comments? I'd love to hear. I love the comments. You guys have some great ideas. Some of the people, whatever you're coming up with, ideas and comments about this. So I think it's great to have a good dialogue about this thing. And I think the more we do, the more we can stand together and realize that we need to stand against tyranny, against this type of control. We want to live in a peaceful country, and we want the American dream like anyone else, right? But we don't want the police state. You can keep that. All right. Share it if you like it. Talk to you later. See ya.